Hey all, it's Jo here from OoopsADaisy, and today I'm going to begin the process of getting my 2024 journal set up. I've completed the steps within our Plan Your Perfect Journal worksheet, thinking about what I want from my next journal and have my colour scheme and page layout sketched out. With the planning done, I've been able to collect together all of the supplies I need, which will hopefully make the actual setup process so much smoother. I'm using a really fun combination of colours from our Don't Worry, Be Happy and Wild Journaling subscription boxes. And I'm going to be using pens, washi tapes, scrapbook paper and stickers to bring the theme to life. And of course we'll have stencils and functional washi tape to build the structural elements of my spreads. I'm going to be debuting the new skinny washi tapes that are exclusive to our monthly and quarterly box subscribers, picking a couple of colours from the Don't Worry, Be Happy colour scheme. I'll also be using my favourite washi tapes, the vertical day and dates, which make any calendar type spread really quick to set up and save your hand from writing the dates over and over again. If you want to see exactly what I've used, then check out the description box below for a full list of supplies. Before I continue with the setup, I wanted to take a moment to invite you all to join our Journal with OoopsADaisy programme. We have built together a step-by-step guide for setting up your perfect journal with guidance from blog posts, step-by-step videos and digital downloads. In order to join, all that we ask is that you make a small donation to our chosen charity, St Clair Hospice. There is no minimum donation, just give what you can afford. To find out more, head to the link on the screen. The journal I've chosen for my new setup is the B5 Barbie Pink But First Coffee design. I'm not normally a pink girly, you guys know I love my purple, but I do love how bright it is and I really do love my coffee. You will notice that there's lots of little post-it notes throughout the journal already. These I've used to plan my layout and mark what spreads will go where. A top tip to overcome the new journal fear is to skip past the first spread, which is normally a cover page, and head to the second or third spread, whichever is a little bit less decorative and a little bit more functional to set up. For me, this will be the future log, and that's what I'm going to be working on today. Once I've got that set up, I'll go back and decorate my cover page with a little bit more confidence now that the first spread is under my belt. I'm busting a brand new universal grid ruler today, which is really handy at splitting your page. It works for any page width from A6 right up to A4, which is really handy for this spread as I'm going to be cutting the edge off the page to make a Dutch door. The whole spread will comprise of 4 double page layouts. The first will be a space to include a photo highlight of each month of the year, and then followed by 3 double page spreads, each holding a future log for 4 months of the year. For the Dutch door element of the spread, there will be 3 tabs in total, 1 for each of the future log layouts. Size-wise, these tabs are 3 dot spaces in from the side and 14 dot spaces in length. These measurements are correct for the OoopsADaisy B5 journal, but you may want to sketch these out on your particular journal before you go anywhere near it with scissors. I know that from the reviewing and planning I did in the Plan Your Perfect Journal worksheet, that I don't use my future log for day-to-day appointments and events as I heavily rely on my iPhone calendar. So for me, the focus of this future log is to firstly capture recurring events such as birthdays and anniversaries, and secondly to plan events and launches for OoopsADaisy. If you are new to journaling, then experimentation is key. Set up your future log and see how you use it. If you've been journaling for a while, then take some time to think about how you actually use your future log. Don't set yourself up for failure by creating a spread that you know you aren't going to use. For each tab I create, I sketch out a cut line with my pencil before going in with scissors. For any Dutch door I create, I tend to focus first on creating the physical structure of the entire spread, which is what I'm doing now, before I begin to add pen to the page. If you've seen any of my previous videos, you will likely know that I love a Dutch door spread. I love how they group pages together to form a very definite connection. They add interest to the shape of the page and functionality by having tabs like this which show exactly what goes where. Once I've made the tabs, I will go ahead and decorate the side of each page with a strip of the Don't Worry, Be Happy washi tape. This design was actually from our January 2022 monthly subscription box, and I loved it so much that I ordered a restock so that it could have a permanent place in the shop collection. I have taken the bold choice of combining the Don't Worry Be Happy washi tape with our wild gelling leopard print pattern for a really fun and playful retro style colour scheme. If you're not into clashing patterns and colours like I am, then you will be very happy to know that we have a whole range of washi tapes and stickers that coordinate perfectly with our journal colours. I did experiment with this when I was brainstorming my colour palette for this journal, but it really just didn't feel true to me. Anyone who knows me will tell you that I'm the opposite of matchy and coordinated. Clashing patterns and colours bring me joy, so this is what I wanted for my journal setup. Again, this really highlights the importance of taking the time to plan out what you will do before you begin, and remembering that it's your journal and should therefore be a reflection of you, not just a carbon copy of ideas from Pinterest or Instagram. You can purchase our Plan Your Perfect Journal printable via the printable section of our website. However, if you decide to join the Journal with OoopsADaisy program, then you will get this and a bunch of other resources included totally free of charge. Now, in order to decorate the tabs and mark out which tab leads to which months in my future log, I'm going to be using days and date stickers. These are the Be Awesome days and dates, and they feature the font Blossom. Blossom is one of my favourite fonts. It is really playful and it's also hugely forgiving in terms of placement. It doesn't need to be perfectly aligned to look right on the page. Blossom is going to be the font that I'm going to be using throughout the entire future log and actually all of my other initial journal setup spreads, using font stencils and also stickers like this. Sticking to one font and one colour palette keeps the whole start of the journal looking cohesive, and it really brings me joy. I am a total convert to using tweezers to place my stickers, and if you have issues getting the stickers off the page, then try folding the top of the sheet slightly to reveal the top part of the sticker. Once I've added all the numbers 1 to 12 to represent the 12 months of the year, I'm now going to go ahead and start decorating my first double page spread. This future log setup is actually very similar to one that I've used in my previous journal, with a few little tweaks. On the first double page, I've included a space for 12 photos, one for each month of the year. Although it's highly unlikely that I'm going to be using this particular journal for a whole year, I made the decision that as I'm starting this journal at the beginning of a new year, it would be nice to capture an image for every month throughout the year in that one spread. In order to remember to do this, I'm going to be utilising a tip from Jashi Corin. If you don't follow her on YouTube already, then I strongly suggest you search her out after you finish this video, as she has a ton of very inspiring and informative journaling content. Jashi uses something called tip-ins. These are little pieces of paper stuck into your journal that fold out to reveal more information. For her weekly and monthly reset, she lists the steps to complete her journal at the end of each week or month so nothing gets forgotten. Every month after I have set up my new spreads, I do a monthly migration, and this is where I move over all the incomplete tasks to my new spreads and effectively shut down the previous month in my journal. As part of my monthly migration, I will add a note to update the month's highlight photo in this future log and update any annual trackers that I add to the initial setup of the journal. All of my monthly migration tasks will be added to a Jashi style tip-in so that I can remember to walk through all of the steps at the end of this month and not forget anything. I'm going to be using my Sprocket photo printer to create the images for this highlight spread. So I know that those photos are 2 by 3 inches in size and they line up really nicely with the blocks from our B5 rainbow boxes. I am going to be using leopard print scrapbook paper from our wild journaling box to add in these placeholders. Alternatively, you could draw boxes using the stencil or add in any other scrapbook paper that works for your theme. Having these placeholder spaces means that the spread looks complete before you begin, and also means that you've decided on a layout right from the get-go, so each month all you need to do is add in your photo. I've used my desktop paper trimmer to cut the scrapbook paper into size. If you do have one of these, and word of warning, the blades are incredibly sharp. I gave myself a pretty nasty cut to the finger by picking it up quickly without thinking. However, it does do the job really well and you get lovely straight lines on the boxes to add to the spread. I've created 12 boxes because there's 12 months of the year, and I just about managed to have them cut from the paper that I had. The placement of the 12 squares is very tight, so I'd recommend having them lying down on your page and experimenting with the layout before you begin gluing them down. If you're using a journal smaller than mine is B5, then this layout may need to be done over 2 pages to fit 12 sprocket size images. Alternatively, you could use the function on the sprocket to collage the photos and print 2 of your months on every sprocket print. I will be using a glue dot roller to add the scrapbook paper to my journal. This is definitely my favourite type of adhesive as it dries immediately, is pretty forgiving if you need to move anything, and is handy to keep in my pencil case. If you're wondering why I'm wasting pattern paper as placeholders when they're going to get covered anyway, then don't worry. I plan on adding the photos slightly offset so that the pattern paper eventually acts as a drop shadow to the image. This will mean that there is an area of pattern still showing after all of the photos are added, and the leopard print will still be a part of the final layout. Finally, I've added stickers to each square to label the month so that I know exactly where each photo will go. Now it's time to begin actually setting up my future log. In order to set up the main section of my future log, I will first use the grid ruler to find the centre of the page. To do this, I simply placed the ruler over the page and moved it around so that the same number lines up on each page edge. For me, that number is 14, meaning that the area that I'm trying to split in half is 28 grid spaces wide. There is a notch on the ruler to mark the centre point, and I mark here on the page with a pencil. I have then used the skinny yellow washi tape to divide the page in 2. Each of these sections will be room for a single month in my future log setup. I'm using my Blossom uppercase font stencil to add a title to each section, the first 3 letters of the month, and will leave it as an outline of the font without filling in the centre, as I like how this looks aesthetically on the page. My go-to pen for writing in my journal is a 04 Pigma Micron Fineliner in black. This is the pen I buy again and again as it dries quickly, works well with stencils, and is the right thickness for my personal handwriting. But again, this is probably something you want to experiment with. Within all of our font stencils, there's a row of holes at the bottom which make the middles of the letters. This was actually an idea of one of our brilliant customers and has proved really popular as it makes creating headers in your journal really easy. These letters on our A5 font stencil are approximately 2 centimetres in height. We also have the Blossom font as a 5 centimetre large font, and that is on a selection of pocket size stencils, which are available for VIPs only. Once the headers are complete, I will then go ahead and add the dates for the month 1 to 31 and the days that each of those days fall using our vertical days and dates washi tape. Lining up the days and dates washi tape is really satisfying as it perfectly aligns with the 5mm dot grid. Honestly, this is one of the simplest things we've ever created, but probably one of the best. Once the days and dates are added, I will then go ahead and add a box to the top of each column, which I'll use for planning out launches and subscription themes for OoopsADaisy. For this, I'm using our classic MVP stencil, again one of my favourites that I tend to carry around with me as it's really versatile. Once you have your layout, it's really just about repeating that 12 times to create a complete future log. I will then go in and add birthdays, anniversaries and other recurring tasks so that at the start of every monthly setup I check my future log for important dates that I need to add to my monthly layout. As I mentioned previously, I do use my iPhone calendar alongside my future log, with my actual future log acting more like a perpetual calendar. But as I do use it to plan out OoopsADaisy based things, I think it still counts as a future log. For bullet journal purists, any plans, days, dates, events would all go into your future log, but I personally never remember to do this and always rely heavily on a digital calendar as I have it with me at all times. While I set up my remaining future log pages, I would love to know a little bit more about how you future plan in your journal. Are you a journaling purist where everything goes in your journal, or do you use a combination of digital and analogue methods? I think it's really important to acknowledge that there is no one right way to journal, and actually by promoting that it may be off-putting for people who may be considering starting out. This was actually one of my main motivations for getting the Journal with OoopsADaisy programme live, as it is something we discuss at every step of the process. Journaling with the intention to replicate exactly what you see online will never be something you stick to long term. Your journal needs to work for you, so creating pages or setting up trackers for things that you don't have interest in or that aren't useful for you will be so much more difficult to stick with long term. I personally know that I don't remember to complete complex habit trackers, and so now, after 8 years of trying, I don't include them in my journal. If you're just starting out, then take the time to think about what you want from your journal and what you will use it for. When do you want to use it, and what effect do you want it to have on your life are really important questions to consider. My biggest tip would be not to be afraid to experiment. Don't try to be perfect. That's not what the journal is for. Your journal should work for you and not the other way around. The only person who needs to see it is you. So don't matter if it's messy. I promise you, for all the journal setups you see on YouTube, not one of them looks that way at the end of the month if the person is truly using their journal. For every super cute layout in my journal, there are 5 pages of scribbles, messy to-do lists, random notes and brainstorms. And honestly, I enjoy both sides of it. I think it's really important not to let comparison to others be the reason why you stop a hobby that can be so rewarding and so productive. The other tip I would have is not to get too far ahead of yourself. If you go ahead and set up a whole 6 months or 12 months in advance, then it leaves no room for flexibility or experimentation. In my opinion, if you're going to do this, you may as well buy a pre-printed planner, as for me, the biggest advantage of journaling is the ability to flex and change and adapt to what is going on at your life at any moment. For example, let's say you set up your journal 12 months in advance and then you go and break your leg. While that might be a pretty dramatic example, it does illustrate my point. Not to mention that for me, setting up spreads regularly is also what keeps me engaged in the process. Now that my little soapbox moment is over and I've completed the bulk of my future log setup, I'm going to add a few little tweaks for decoration. I'm using the same 1 to 12 numbers on the reverse side of the tabs so that you can see the numbers regardless of which way the page is turned. I'm also going to add in a strip of the Wild Journaling washi tape to the start and end pages. This adds a little contrast to where the tabs sit and makes them stand out. The next thing I'm going to be doing is adding a title to the front page, and I have decided to colour this in, unlike the titles to the individual month pages, as I think it needs that in order to stand out against all of the animal print. The title that I've decided on is 2024, A Year in Pictures, which I will be placing vertically down the side of the 12 picture placeholders. I did trace this in pencil first to make sure of my spacing before I went ahead and did this with pen. And that's something I would definitely recommend if ever you were unsure whether words will fit in the spread. Once my future log is complete, I will go ahead and set up a simple key and create a decorative cover page. These will be things I do off camera, so if you do fancy having a nose, then you're going to have to come back next week. After completing the basic setup of my key, cover page and future log, my focus and that of my next video will be looking at goal setting and planning, and some of this will revolve around my word of the year. Your word of the year is something that represents a manifestation of what you want your next year to look like. It can be the basis of your goal planning or time planning, and if this is something you will be interested in, you should definitely hit subscribe, as we have a really handy printable worksheet and some tips on how to decide upon your word. The process will involve reflecting on the previous year and looking forward to how you want the next 12 months to look. Hitting subscribe also really helps our videos to find the right people, which is massively helpful for the channel. So a huge thank you to everyone who has already hit the subscribe button. We love you. It's now time to take a closer look at the final setup. I'm so pleased with how this has turned out, and while hippie patterns and animal print might not bring joy to everyone, they definitely do to me. And ultimately, that is what journaling is all about. Thank you so much for hanging out with me while I set up my future log. I hope I will see all of you next week for my goal planning setup. Take care and have a great week.